First, let's talk about the types of air dry clays. Some of my insights are based on personal experience, while others are based on research and observation. I'll include cards for each clay I mention so you can see examples, but only for the ones I've used. Before I begin, I want to clarify that I prefer working with clays that aren't messy, meaning they don't stick to my hands or require excessive sanding or have difficulties with painting and sealing. To be clear, this is just my preference. I tend to be a bit Aussie when it comes to my work. However, all the tips and tricks I'll discuss are applicable to all types of air dry clay. The first type is called porcelain clay. This was the first air dry clay I ever used, and I've used it for many years. It is very inexpensive and I can even make it myself. Cold porcelain clay can capture intricate details, even the smallest ones, and it doesn't dry as quickly as other types. Additionally, it's less likely to develop cracks and it produces a very smooth finished product. However, cold porcelain clay can be a bit troublesome when it comes to shrinking and changing colors. The second type is resin or dry clay. This is different from cold porcelain clay. Although some people may be confused about the difference, resin clay shrinks less and you don't need to condition it as much. Modena is an example of resin clay, though I usually buy the cheaper unbranded version because Modena is quite expensive. Resin or dry clay dries faster, so you have to work quickly. But for me, this is an advantage because faster drying means it's less likely to sag. The third type is stone air dry clay. The brand I tried is Nara. I like working with this type of clay because I won't mind dust and fingerprints. It is also very satisfying to paint because it holds paint well. However, I found it difficult to sculpt because it doesn't capture details in one go. It's requiring me to redo the details while it is drying. Also, the most notable thing about this clay is that it's a bit heavy. The fourth type is paper air dry clay. I haven't tried it yet, but from what I observe, paper clay tends to crack more while drying. Although this may depend on the brand you use, however, cracking is not the only issue for me because cracks are easy to deal with. But I think paper clay needs to be sanded to achieve a very smooth finish. Having it to dry and then patch it repeatedly to achieve the desired details, it isn't for me. But I admire artists who use paper clay. The fifth type is foam clay or super light air dry clay. This clay is extremely light. If you throw it, it will just bounce. The finished product is soft, bouncy, and somewhat rubbery. Working with it is both easy and difficult. It is very easy to condition, which is what I like about it. It doesn't require much energy from me. It comes in pre-colored form, so there's no need to add colors. However, you can add paint to the clay because it changes the texture. You can only paint over it. It is difficult to work with because it dries very quickly and it is likely to develop many small cracks. It's also not easy to patch when you're working with dark colors because it tends to lighten when you add water to smooth it out. However, this isn't a problem if you're going to paint over it. Be cautious though with thin pieces when dried, although it's durable because it's bouncy, but it is very easy to tear or punch holes in. When I first started using air dry clay, I didn't have money to buy tools. I used a plastic folder like this, which is just a cut out piece of it. Do not buy this kind of silicone mat as some clay can easily stick to it. This is the silicone mat that you need. You can see the texture difference. I also used toothpicks and any small tools that I could find at home, like small scissors, toy blocks. I even made some tools using silicone and cornstarch. But the best tool for me, both back then and now, is my hands. Let me show you the tools I frequently use as well as those that are used less often. Number 1 is acrylic block. I use this to press down clays and to make equal snakes of clay. Number 2 is small curved nail scissors. These are perfect for cutting clays and for design work. Next one is clay needle tool. I use this for holding heads, smoothing clay, making thin pieces, adding texture to it, or poking details. Number 4 is this flathead clay tool. This is great for smoothing areas that my fingertips can't reach and for placing small pieces of clay. Number 5 is plastic rolling pin. I love this for flattening clay because the clay doesn't stick to it. This one is called stainless flexible blade. This is for cutting clay. And this one and the rolling pin, I'm using them for 8 years now, and they are still very useful for me. The last one is X-Acto knife. I use this to smooth clay, remove dust, or for cutting dried clay. These are the tools that I use less often. Ball tools. The big one is for molding flowers, while the small ones are for indenting eyes or adding details. Watercolor brush. I use it for smoothing clays in areas that I cannot reach. Plastic tools for making details or strands of hair. Small and big cutters. The small one, I use it for details, small details. And the big cutters, I usually use them for bases or dress. This one is called round half sphere silicone mold. This is for measuring clay to ensure consistent amount each time. Toothbrush. This is for creating textures like bread, ice cream, biscuits, cake, etc. tweezers. I use tweezers for making grass-like texture and picking small things. Big scissors and decorative scissors. I use them for cutting dresses, long hair, or making designs, or making laces on the dress. Here is how I keep my clay clean. First, I wash my hands, then I clean the surface before placing my silicone mat. I use tissue or wipes with alcohol to clean it thoroughly. Next, I clean the tools that I'm going to use. These are the tools that I always take out of the storage box. Here are some tips for keeping my hands, mat, and tools even cleaner. I use super light or dry clay to clean them thoroughly. Trust me, there is still some dust, especially since I live in a very dusty place. You can use your white clay, but I recommend using super light or foam clay as it is easy to soften, allowing me to reuse it multiple times. Now everything is clean, let's talk about the clay itself. If you have very soft, sticky, or saggy clay, you just need to condition it in front of an electric fan. If you condition your clay for too long or if the clay you have is getting dry, just spray it with water. Then knead it. It will be a bit messy and stick to your fingers, but you can pull the clay off your fingers easily. If it is no longer sticky, then it is ready. When working with air dry clay and you need more time to sculpt, you can add petroleum jelly to the clay. I use it when sculpting complicated parts such as hands, legs, or when I need to create gradient color clay. I also use this transparent folder when making gradients to prevent clay from drying. How do I avoid cracks? First, I work quickly, which I'm used to after using air dry clay for 9 years. It is also depends on the brand or type of clay you are using. Cold porcelain and resin clay are less likely to crack. Handling and drying the clay properly are crucial. Though cracks are inevitable, you can easily patch them using the same clay mixed with water to smooth it out. I avoid dust at all costs. The easiest way for me to clean it is by using cotton with water. I squeeze out the excess water and then wipe it off. If the dust is stubborn, I pinch the part or I use a tool to remove it. You can also use the cotton and water method on dried clay. If the dust is too deep, scratch it with X-Acto knife and then smooth it again using the cotton. To keep my clay moist and soft, I spray some distilled water in the container. I also do this with clay that I'm not using to prevent it from drying out. This storing method is easier for me than wrapping it in cling wrap and then sealing it in an airtight container. Does your clay color change a lot when drying? Then, test a small piece of clay by drying it for 30 minutes to see its color when it's dried. Properly dry your clay by first ensuring it doesn't sag. If you are working on a large project, you should use armatures like styrofoam, aluminum foil, wood, tissue, papers, or completely dried piece of super light clay. You can use tissue paper or silk cloths to support drying. Additionally, use a silk screen so the bottom part of the clay dries too. Flip the clay every 30 minutes to an hour to ensure even drying. Support your clay while drying with polyester fiber fill, a ball, or any surface that can hold your clay into the shape you need. That's it. I hope you found this video helpful and thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like for more videos.